get started. Local government, as we take up some House bills today. We've got 12 on the docket, and apparently everything's going to be considered. Nobody's asked for anything to be carried over or not dealt with today. So let's see who we have here. Can you open up the roll? All right, first one up, we have Delegate Knight.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to take House Bill 166?
All right,
first?
Sure.
Okay. What this bill is, we had an issue in the city of Virginia Beach and some other areas around there where when we get ready to have a planning commission meeting, we have to advertise that in the local paper, ours being the Virginian Pilot, and we advertise, we pay, we get a receipt, and then it doesn't run in the paper. And on a couple of 2 or 3 occasions, we've had to cancel the Planning Commission because of this. So what we're asking to do is if it runs on the city's website like it always does, and if we've made...
Delegate Knight, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is identical to Senator, not identical to Senator DeSteff's bill. Yours is different. Can you tell us how it's different from DeSteff's?
Well, maybe he could tell you how it's different, but I do have a notice from the city of Virginia Beach. They said they kind of think maybe my verbiage may be, it's just a little bit different, maybe a little bit better than Senator DeSteff's. And I think maybe Senator DeSteff, I can't speak for him, but he may want to think that my version.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to speak on this. I believe that Barry's, Delegate Knight's language is almost the exact same as my original bill, modified the first time, not the second or third. So we do like the language better on his bill. So with that, I'd like to request we report this fine bill.
Okay. Anybody on the committee have any questions for Delegate Knight? Anybody in the audience want to speak in favor? Yeah, in favor of House Bill 166?
One quick question.
Senator Favola.
And I apologize. Okay, I answered my own question. I was concerned. I was concerned about the sunset. You do have it in here. So, can you just tell me what is the slight difference between yours and Senator DeSteff's? Perhaps staff. I'll direct it to staff.
Mr. Chairman, the only difference is you'll see on line 28 where the House bill is limited to localities in Planning District 23. Then there's a grammar change on line 29, and then on Senator Favola says on line 121 there's a 2-year sunset clause.
Okay. And you don't want to conform. Senator DeSteff, you don't want to conform this to your bill, is what I'm hearing you say.
Mr. Chair, I'd rather not.
Okay.
We do like, even though we do like the sentence in mind that says it should be run on the next available business day that publication is done, and that was the one piece of my bill that I think everybody in the Senate liked, and that's what got it through. So if the patron's okay, we may put that language in there, and I think that's inferred in his bill, that it would be run in the next available business day for that newspaper.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
I just noticed that some of the wording in here actually improves on Senator DeSeff's bill in that his bill, which would be fine to put that language in there, said it had to be published the next available publishing date, but this one makes it clear that it has to be at least 3 weeks before the actual hearing. So that makes it clear that there will be a notice out there at least 3 weeks before the actual hearing.
And if there's not, though, the hearing could go forward.
All right. Anybody speak against House Bill 166?
Mr. Chair.
Senator McPike.
I just wanted to indicate to the patron that when the bill was heard in this committee under the Senate version, there was some concern that the issue was under study, as we heard from testimony. So there were some dissenting and no votes based on carving out one local government that have different rules of the game versus a statewide issue, and with the pending issue being studied, it seems like there needs to be some resolution but it's not yet there. So I just wanted to offer that to the delegate for the understanding of why there were some dissenting votes and concern.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman?
Right.
I agree with that, and that's why they did one thing, they carved it down lower to the planning district, and they did put a sunset clause on it, and the Virginia Press Association was okay with this, and as everyone well knows, we still have another bite of the apple when it goes to city council after planning commission.
All right. Operate by motion.
Move to report. Second.
All right, so motion made to report House Bill 166.
Nays 12, nays 2.
All right, Delegate Knight, you're batting 1,000.
Yes, sir.
What's next?
Next one is House Bill 505. And what this language says, it puts a time frame on this issue because where the aggrieved parties, we're talking about Board of Zoning Appeals, where the aggrieved party has 30 days to file, the court's time frame is open-ended. So this bill says after the writ of cert is served, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall have 21 days to respond.
Was there, Delegate Knight, was there a specific circumstance that gave rise to this, or?
Yes, sir. They had an attorney in Chesapeake came to me and said that he had something, and he wanted to appeal this decision, and he couldn't appeal it because the court just went on for about a year or so. So he just kind of wanted to put a time frame on this. It was just languishing out there. There was no time frame whatsoever.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sproul.
but have you considered the 21 days? Have you considered the time that the zoning board of appeals in Chesapeake, as far as the time that they have, the number of bills that they have? So we're not Virginia Beach now, so he may complain to you, but the time that we have a problem with city council trying to carry everything to court. We resolved that problem. So you're just doing this from a lawyer who lives in Chesapeake. So I don't want you to hinder Chesapeake because of one lawyer.
I don't know how to respond to that. I mean,
Okay.
an attorney brought it to me and said that it was just open-ended. It had been going on for about a year, and they'd like to put a time frame. So, seemed like, when in consultation with legislative services, they thought 21 days was a good time.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sproul.
I can understand if that was an ongoing problem with a whole lot of lawyers, but you have problems with just one lawyer. I mean, it's not right to interrupt our system of government because of one lawyer. So I can see if we had a problem with time after time, different ones from time after time, but just one lawyer, 21 days is just not enough time. From zoning board of appeals was saying to me. So if we had one problem with one lawyer, I can understand that. But I just can't see changing the apple cart because of one lawyer.
Anybody here to speak in favor of House Bill 505? Anybody to speak against House Bill 505?
Move to report.
Second.
All right, been a motion that House Bill 505 report and been seconded. Open up the roll.
Nays 13, nays 1.
All right, Delegate, I think you got a third, don't you? Do you have a third?
No, sir.
Just two? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right.
Thank you.
Delegate Ward. Madam Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My bill, House Bill 549, is brought to you on behalf of the city of Hampton, and it authorizes though any community within Planning District 23 or has a population of at least 75,000 to include provisions for cutting overgrown shrubs, trees, and other vegetation in ordinance requiring certain landowners to cut the grass, weeds, and other foreign growth or certain property. What this is if you have a house and the grass is not cut, the city can go in and cut the grass. But if you have overgrown shrubs, then there's nothing the city can do. Now, I want to be clear. We are not talking about in your yard and maybe it's been 5-6 months and nobody has trimmed up the shrub. I'm talking about this growth that has been growing for a year or more. Usually a deserted house, somebody has left, the homeowners are not there, the children or whomever has possession are now living someplace else. They don't even know how it looks.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that this bill passed from the committee under Senator Locke's Senate Bill 340. Would it be the interest of the committee to conform it to Senator Locke's bill? I think there's a one-line amendment.
One line amendment would be required to do that.
So move and second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we conform Delegate Ward's bill to Senator Locke's bill, which was SB 340. All those in favor, say it. Let's.
Mr. Chairman, don't you think she should know what it is? Do you know what that line is?
I'm getting ready to ask him to report it. Can you report the amendment?
Mr. Chair, on line 38, after the number 23, strike, or that has a population of at least 75,000.
So then it would be just any locality within planning district 23.
Right.
God bless you.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion that we make that amendment, and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so it's been conformed to Senator Locke's SB 340.
Move the report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that House Bill 549 as amended be reported. All those in favor?
Yeas 13, nays 1.
All right, Delegate Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Let's see, we've got one more here. It's a committee member's bill. No, it's not either, I'm sorry. It's from Delegate Bell, who is not with us. Okay.
The rocks is identical,
Is it? Okay.
632.
All right, well, wait a minute, let's see. Delegate Cole here, he's been here for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My bill is House Bill 106. This is one of those bills that was brought due to a local county attorney. What it is currently in the code, the locality may by ordinance require that homeowners place visible numbers on their homes. That's to help with emergency response. Originally, the locality passed a ordinance that had a civil penalty associated with it. However, when the county attorney reviewed the code, they said if you did that, it had to be a criminal penalty, not a civil penalty. And this clarifies the code that says that it can be a civil penalty. I don't think somebody should be, not having a number on your house should be a criminal offense. I think it's more appropriate to handle it as a civil matter.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sproul.
what does involve in a civil penalty? Jail time, money time?
No, it's just a fine. It would be a fine of up to, I think, $100, I think, in the bill.
It's 100. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
$100.
No, Senator Sproul.
are you aware of in Chesapeake, since we the second largest city in the state land-wise, that a lot of houses don't have numbers. We say go down to the red house, make a left turn, the green house, and blue house on the right.
This doesn't require a locality to implement an ordinance requiring house numbers.
Okay.
It just says if a locality does,
Okay.
they can impose it as a civil penalty.
Right.
There is no mandate in this bill.
Permissive, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody here to speak in favor of 106? Anybody speak against 106?
Mr. Chairman, I will move to report.
There's
Brother
been a-
Cole, do I still like you? You my friend, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm for it.
You're my.
It passed out of the House in a block vote of 100 to nothing, so. All right, there's been a motion made that we report 106. It's been seconded. Let's open up the roll.
Yeas 14, 0.
Is that it? You're
All right,
good.
thank you.
Yeah, you're good. Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't know which one you want to take up first, if you want to do drones.
Sure.
Just for something different.
Whatever you want to do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 742. And what this does is it provides political subdivisions with the ability to manage potential conflicting uses between unmanned aerial systems and other uses on property that's actually owned by the political subdivision. And so I think, as a lot of you all are aware, Virginia is trying to position itself as a leader in unmanned aerial systems technology, and that's something that's great. And as part of that effort, we passed a law that was a across-the-board ban on political subdivisions being able to regulate these systems. That prevents a patchwork of regulations, but it also means that political subdivisions can't even adopt reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on the takeoff and landing of drones on property that they own. And so a local park or a local school can go ahead and regulate skateboards, they can regulate pets, they can regulate where you're going to go ahead and throw frisbees, but they can't actually do anything whatsoever with respect to the takeoff and landing of an unmanned aerial system. And so the question we had was, how do you balance making sure that you don't have a patchwork of regulations with the fact that it is very legitimate for a locality to be able to manage these competing uses. And so the bill before you was the work of a very broad range of stakeholders, balances those two things off. And so what it does is it says localities can adopt these reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, but it leaves it up to the Department of Aviation to put together a framework for how these would be done. So you're able to get that consistency while also making sure you're able to manage competing uses. Mr. Chairman, that's what the bill does. Got some folks here who are happy to go ahead and speak to it. The director of the Department of Aviation says he's chomping at the bit to be able to get into this. So
He needs to get a hobby.
yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
he looked genuinely excited.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Senator Sproul.
this for District 8?
No, sir.
Statewide.
This is statewide. So any locality will now be able to make sure they can manage those competing uses on a school or a park or college or university, actually.
Anybody want to talk, anybody in support of?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Skiles with the Vector Corporation representing DJI, which is a unmanned system manufacturer. We appreciate working with Delegate Bulova. We obviously were supportive of the original preemption statute that was put into the code a few years ago. Obviously, Delegate Bulova came to the industry with some concerns, and we worked over a year and a half to get this to a good place. We think that this language gives local governments the adequate protections that they need through a single unified framework that will be put together by Department of Aviation. But if there are any questions about impact on industry, I'm happy to answer them.
David, of course, I represent Wallops Island, and so I'm a little concerned always about anything that might have a chilling impact on the UAVs and everything. But so the industry's fine with this.
Mr. Chairman, I would respond to that by saying yes. You know, certainly when we put the preemption language in, or when the General Assembly put the preemption language in effect a few years ago, it was exactly for that reason. States that are looking to grow their UAS industry have very strong preemption statutes. I think Delegate Bulova brought a very reasonable concern, which was the language was so strict that it really handcuffed local governments' abilities to regulate their own property. And so this is a good measure in terms of being able to find that halfway point. What we were concerned of from an industry perspective is that you would have multiple political subdivisions, each adopting their own rules and regulations, which would make it very difficult for the industry or consumers who use these drones for recreational purposes. And the measure before you allows the local government to adopt an ordinance, but that ordinance would be crafted by the Department of Aviation, so it would be a single framework for localities or political subdivisions that choose to adopt that ordinance.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
quick question.
Just
and
Senator, just
the concern I have is, in our area, our military members, whether they're in the middle of training or exercises, they actually take off and land from, or they have emergency landings on some property that's city-owned property. So I see where we have an exemption for sworn public safety officers and the performance of their duty. In the past, we've always exempted the military from stuff like this. I don't see it in here, but I could be missing it.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Steff, and the patron might want to respond to whether or not he'd be amenable to that change. I would simply say that we obviously put some exceptions into the statute itself, public safety officials, commercial interests, and obviously for any operator that's suffering or having an emergency on board the UAS being able to land. I think the issue that Senator Steff raised could be addressed through the regulations the Department of Aviation put forward. Obviously, we wanted to strike a careful balance between addressing Delegate Bulova's concerns while at the same time not loading up carve-out after carve-out into the code itself, and allowing the Department of Aviation to draft those regulations as they saw fit, which would be covered in the second enactment clause there regarding the stakeholder group that will meet following passage.
Chairman, follow-up question and statement. The last time we had this in front of us was 5 years ago, and Admiral Harvey and I had a spirited discussion about it, very spirited. And we had an exemption clause in there specifically for the military, and there was a lot of reasons for it. I would ask the patron if he would consider putting that military exemption in there the way we did prior. I would not want Secretary Hopkins or Admiral Harvey to find out that we did not move forward without putting something like that in there. The concern the last time was a very critical one, and I had to have some interesting conversations with Admiral Harvey at the time. So I don't want to get into that again. And I think the best way to move forward doing that would be to put that military exemption in there that we had 4 or 5 years ago when we established the code section here. Would the patron be willing to do that?
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to put that in there along the same lines as public safety officials. Really, the idea is that you want to balance those competing uses where you've got somebody recreationally coming into a park or a school or a college, and right now they kind of have primacy over any other use that's out there. And so I would consider that a friendly amendment.
Okay. Can we come up with some language?
Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I don't know exactly how I want to word that. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research to figure out the best way to exempt the military on that, but certainly I can draft that.
Do you want to take this by for the week?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Donovan?
I think that the language has been written before, and I think if it's okay with the committee, we can move to recommend this bill with the understanding that it'll be made before it goes to the floor. If Senator DeStaff is amenable to that.
I think we better look at it before we send it out of here. That's usually the
I think I
best
would
practice.
agree with the chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make sure we get it by Carlos Hopkins, Secretary Hopkins.
Sure.
There's a concern here that I don't want to hit again. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sproul?
well, if some of the staff can remember something 5 years ago, how hard could it be for to find something? We want to bypass for the week, this thing gonna die. We want to get this thing done out tomorrow night, so it should not be hard. As smart as Jeff is, he's real smart, aren't you, Jeff? As smart as Jeff, I don't know why he can't find something to put this together. I trust, Mr. Chairman, that why can't we allow Jeff to put something together and to have it ready for us when we get to the floor, then if it's not right, then take it out.
I just don't think that's just not a good practice. I don't think. We've got time. The bill's not in any trouble. It's not a controversial bill.
Mr. Chairman, I would
You like
move,
us, you want to come back, right, Delegate Bullock?
I would move that we just pass it by for the week.
Yeah, why don't we just pass it by for the week, and Jeff will
Second.
have the language for us, okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, I'm
just
sorry.
wanted, that's okay. Chris Sigler with Fairfax County. I just want to thank Delegate Bulova for his work on the bill. Fairfax County supports the bill for the reasons that he
All right,
stated.
good. All right, you'll be in fine shape next week, so.
Perfect, thank you. Completely understand that concern. One more bill, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go right ahead.
All right, so this is House Bill 515. This is the request of Fairfax County, the City of Fairfax, and the City of Falls Church. And so for the urban county form of government, which is just Fairfax County, that part of the code provides for the establishment of a Board of Social Services. In addition to county residents, Fairfax County is also contractually obligated to provide those services to the City of Fairfax and Falls Church. All three localities would like for these cities to have representation on the board. However, the way the code is written, those representatives have to be county residents. And so all House Bill 515 is simply authorize the two cities to have a seat at the table.
Move to report.
Oh, Senator Howe.
Well, I was just going to say, I used to be on that board. I assume it's still an advisory board, not, yeah.
All right,
And
it's
by the way, we used to have representatives from those cities, so I don't know what happened in the last 30 years.
I think they might have discovered that they weren't really supposed to do that under the code, so, yeah.
All right. All right, it's been motioned and seconded that House Bill 515 report.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You did good. Delegate LaRock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 632.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this provides for the transition of certain land development approvals when a property comes into a different jurisdiction by annexation or boundary line adjustment. Intended to just provide clarity in that situation so that approvals can be honored again when an annexation takes place. This was requested by the town of Leesburg. I think it is identical to Senator Boysko's Senate Bill 647, which voted out of the Senate 38-0.
Okay. Anybody here to speak in favor of House Bill 632?
Mr. Chair, this is Keith Markle with the town of Leesburg. I just want to thank Delegate LaRock for introducing this and Senator Boysko for her support of this legislation. This helps us with a large development project that is being constructed immediately outside of the town's limits, and they're looking to come into the town, and just provides clarity to the development community and to the localities as to what regulations do apply when they come into the town. Thank you.
Senator Bell.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Two questions for the patron. One, does this apply to every place in Virginia would be my... Okay. And number two, if town or county A inherits an existing project, then they would automatically have, that project would have the approvals regardless of the potential impacts. They would not be able to hear that for the new locality. Is that correct? They would have to accept those previous approvals.
I believe permission, Keith, please.
I believe that's how it's understood, unless they worked out a separate arrangement. But for the pro forma adoption of bringing in a property into the town's corporate limits, for our case, we would adopt whatever county approvals were on that parcel prior to coming into the town.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, speaking of the bill.
Yep, Senator Bell.
I know this identical or similar to Senator Boysko's bill, but frankly, I think this has fairly big implications. If a town inherits another project and they didn't have a chance to do hearings on the impact to emergency services, schools, et cetera. And I think this could be dangerous since it applies to the entire Commonwealth.
May I add, this is, Mr. Chair, a voluntary boundary line adjustment. So this would be something that the locality would have to agree to prior to having the land come into its jurisdiction. So if they chose to provide different regulatory approvals, they could process that separately. But this is for a friendly boundary line adjustment bringing into the town.
Anybody speak against 632?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
just
Donovan?
a point of clarification. Our docket says that this is identical to 647. Could
That's
we
what he
have,
said.
yeah, which we passed out. So I'm just wondering if we could have council comment on that, if it's the same bill.
Well, that horse is out of the barn, I think, is the point Senator Bell's making.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay. Operate by motion.
Report.
Substitute motion, move to PBI.
Substitute motion is to PBI the bill. Open up the roll.
Yeas 8, nays 7.
Bill's PBI'd. Delegate Guzman.
Mr. Chairman, just a very quick point that may be of interest, I guess more on the House side, but it was just pointed out to me the bill is permissive and not required, so I think that may
Appreciate
be
that.
significant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring to you House Bill 585. This bill is asking localities, when they prepare their comprehensive plans, whatever is, might be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, to include in their preparation to address transit-oriented development, and they should include the strategies like building low-income affordable housing, prioritizing transit options, increasing housing density, and taking action to reduce carbon emissions in any other way a locality sees fit. But I believe, Mr. Chairman, that by directing localities to coordinate new development in both housing and transportation, we can enable them, and we will do our due diligence to fight climate change at the local level and supplement the work we do statewide without infringing on their ability to govern as they wish. We have prepared this bill in coordination with many stakeholders that are here to present in favor of this bill.
All right.
My bill is completely.
Anybody to speak in favor of House Bill 585? Oh, my.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey with Sierra Club. We thank the patron for bringing this bill, and we strongly support it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Stuart Schwartz with the Partnership for Smarter Growth in Richmond, the Coalition for Smarter Growth in the Northern Virginia. We're strongly supportive of this guidance to local governments, and that they consider this and tailor their TOD strategies themselves. Very important for attracting people and companies, important for attracting companies like Amazon to the D.C. area to transit, to CoStar in downtown Richmond. It's fiscally responsible because compact development saves on infrastructure costs, reduces traffic congestion, and it's also important for health, walkability in the community and reducing pollution. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Town, Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We thank the patron and support the legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Trip Pollard, Southern Environmental Center. We strongly support the bill. It's good for the economy. It's good for the environment. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wyatt Gordon with Virginia Conservation Network, and we are also in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Karen Campbell, and I'm the co-director for the Green New Deal Virginia, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Favola.
I think it's an excellent idea. I would expect the Virginia Association of Counties supports this, even though it's a mandate to local governments. It's still a very good idea.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I would say that we work with them. At the beginning, the first draft of this bill was including all localities. Then in coordination with them, then we only include cities over,
Right.
go back and check, cities and counties,
20,000.
depending on the population, with cities greater than 20,000 in populations and counties greater than 100,000 in population, because we didn't want to hurt the small cities, but we still believe that it's a great effort, at least as I mentioned earlier. Amazon was mentioned, and I think as delegates in the Northern Virginia area were hit really hard when we proposed that bill, and I think with this, we will address the future and asking localities to work by saving the environment. I think it's a great thing to do.
Mr. Chairman, the Association of Counties is here.
Yeah, Mr.
We can
Lurch
probably
is
hear
here.
I
directly
expect
from
when I
them.
say opposition,
Yeah.
Mr. Lurch is going to be right there.
Yeah, Joe Lurch.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch, Virginia Association of Counties. We thank the delegate for making the amendments to the bill. I think at this time we have no position. When I look at the code already for transportation planning and the requirements for localities, they already have to incorporate affordable housing with transit and transportation. So I think a lot of those things are in there. I think the only thing new here is the word transit-oriented development, which I don't think is defined anywhere in code, but I think we all kind of know what that means. And then attaching it to reducing carbon emissions. I think the goal is laudable. VACO is in support of reducing carbon emissions. But we think we're already kind of getting there with our.
I just have one question, Mr. Chairman. Since transit-oriented growth, transit-oriented is not really defined in code, I guess a jurisdiction could identify bus routes and other, I just want to be clear here, we're not telling jurisdictions that they all have to start planning to be part of an expanded metro rail system. There are other sort of transit-oriented options available to them. Again, I mentioned bus routes, but there could be others. Is that how you would interpret this?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Favola, yeah, I think, just putting on my planning hat, I think for many localities, they would probably look at where the fixed routes are, whether it's bus rapid transit in Richmond, or, it's the HRT, the Tide or Metro Rail, or even Amtrak, say, going through Ashland. Those would be the areas where they would probably look to put housing and walkable urban environments. On the transit routes that may change over time, like I live in the city of Richmond, and I can tell you my bus route has changed many times. So those stops change. I think they would really fix on where the fixed transit stops are.
Which is a good idea. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to report the bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
will you all have a chance to speak on this?
Sure.
Great.
Let me see if anybody else is in opposition.
Not in opposition, just.
Well, neutral, I'm sorry. Is there any opposition? All right, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel the need to speak out to my locality, for my localities, because they have reached out on this specifically. One of my localities really doesn't have any public transportation. And Henrico finds this is a mandate. Here we are making a lot of decisions to empower our local government to be able to prioritize the way that they need to. I think I would be much more comfortable if this was a may instead of a shall, but we have a diverse collection of localities in Virginia, and this is going to be a serious imposition on those that are not similar to Northern Virginia. And I think empowering counties to be able to proceed with this is great. Mandating that they must is a far different situation. And I'm wondering if the delegate would be amenable to changing the shall on this to may.
Mr. Chairman, I would tell Senator Donovan that even though it says they shall incorporate in the comprehensive plans, the strategies is may, what they should include. And we have reached out to Chesterfield, we have reached out to Henrico and Hanover, and I have a representative from the Southern Poverty Law Center. We're happy working with those localities, and many of them are in compliance already.
And yet, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Donovan.
and yet they are very concerned about this bill and have specifically asked me to speak out. So I think that we both have talked to them, and they're not quite as aligned as you think they are. And I certainly understand the value of empowering the localities in this way, but mandates are very different than permissive opportunities. And I think we need to make sure our localities, certainly we could do this as a may, and if it presented as a problem to you in the future, we could come back and do a shall. But I think we need, a locality is going to have a lot on them after this year, and I think we need to give some consideration to them having the permissibility that they have in their planning.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Sproul.
I agree with what the senator says. I wish you could change it to may as well. It's different.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Wait a
propose
minute,
that.
he's looking at, he's showing me that it is a may.
No, it's a shall on line 13. It's a may later on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it says shall consider.
Right.
Shall incorporate.
I think
Shall
we've got
incorporate.
that. Yeah. Yeah, we've got that. Tripp, did you want to say something?
The strategies is a may.
Only, I recognize, I'm sure you're hearing different things from different people, but Henrico, for example, has already done this, made changes in their zoning code. They're well beyond this. Not only in their comp plan, they've actually made changes in their zoning code to already encourage TOD, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, that brings it back. If this is a concern, is there harm in changing the shall to a may? I don't think there is. I think it's prudent as legislators to make sure our localities have that permissiveness. And if you're already getting there with where we are now, we're not doing any harm by having a may. And I'd like to propose that amendment.
And I second that.
All right.
Speaking to the amendment?
Senator Favola.
Well, I think what the delegate is trying to do, and I think that the stakeholders that came before us, we're really trying to say that on a statewide level, smart growth and combining land use planning with transit-oriented development will in fact reduce carbon emissions, and that should be a goal that we all want to achieve. Jurisdictions already have their comprehensive plans. They are trying to do this because they're the ones living with the carbon emissions. I think I'm much more comfortable with the strategies may include, which gives them flexibility. But I don't believe we should let our jurisdictions off the hook in terms of actually focusing on transit-oriented development. This is important enough, has a public policy goal for the Commonwealth to ask our jurisdictions to step up. And if VACO has the organization that represents counties across the Commonwealth is neutral on this, I think it's telling us that the jurisdictions, for the most part, are already considering this in their comprehensive plan. We just want to articulate the value of this. So I will vote against the amendment, but in favor of my first motion, which
Mr.
was...
Chairman, to speak to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell, are you going to speak to the amendment?
I am.
Okay.
Briefly, I hear the concerns here. Almost taking the words from Senator Vivola's statement there, I would offer a slightly different amendment, and Senator Dunn, hopefully this would satisfy your concerns as well. Instead of shall incorporate, how about shall consider? It would cause a little bit more. So then they were just considering it, and I think that matches more with the wording of may later in the paragraph. Would that be acceptable?
Chairman, I think that would be acceptable. I think the point here is, number one, there needs to be some sanity to our consistency on how we treat localities and not intermittently mandate and intermittently be permissive. Number two, if this is already happening, this is a bill that we don't need. So we shouldn't make it mandated in localities for which it would be a strain. So I think that the shall consider gives permissibility to the diverse localities we have throughout Virginia that will allow them the ability to go forward in a prudent way.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on, Jeff?
Mr. Chair, can we amend that to say shall consider incorporating into the next?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Senator Dunn, you're going to withdraw your motion on your amendment, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so now we have the amendment proposed by Senator Bell, which I guess was seconded. If it's not, I just did. All right. And so, Jeff, tell us again what that language would be.
Mr. Chair, on line 13, after the population bracket, it says shall consider incorporating into the next scheduled and all subsequent reviews.
All right, very good. So that's the amendment. Let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Motion and seconded that House Bill 585 be reported as amended. All right, Delegate Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Who's here? Delegate Supermean, you're going to have to help me with your name. Yeah, okay. It's like Monty Mason and I get the same thing, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill is House Bill 406.
All right, tell us about your bill.
Thank you. It's pretty simple. All we're doing is pushing back the deadline for the comprehensive annual financial report by 2 weeks. We're doing this and corresponding deadlines as well by 2 weeks. This is for a couple reasons. One, there are a lot of new standards that localities have to meet, and the extra time has been found to be valuable. This also pushes, this year, for instance, Thanksgiving was November 27th, and the deadline is November 30th, and so it was difficult to meet the deadline this year. Also, there's other deadlines on November 30th, such as the Commonwealth Comparative Report that makes it difficult for counties and localities to be able to meet this deadline. So that's why I think moving it back a couple weeks will really help, and you won't see as many counties needing the extra time and putting in extensions.
All right. Anybody speak in favor of House Bill 406?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Westcott with Prince William County. We support the delegates' bill here, aligning the APA filing date up with the GFOA, creates efficiency for localities and promotes quality, and we appreciate your consideration for this bill.
Okay. Anybody else in favor? Anybody else against House Bill 406?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
Question for the patron.
Yes.
Is this your first bill before a Senate committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would tell the senator that yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Senator Bell.
Is this good for the 87th District and the 13th Senate District?
Mr. Chair, I would tell the senator that yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Subramanian now sits in the delegate seat I held. So Proud for me to move to report.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded, 406 be reported.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you. Even if this were a terrible bill, I feel compelled to vote for it. The delegate is co-chair with me of the Bipartisan Commonwealth Caucus, and we are already buddies.
Okay. A little home cooking going on here. Okay. All right. We got a motion in front of us to report HB 406. She gone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to congratulate the delegate on a 7-word success. Well done.
Thank you, Senator.
Delegate Samira, there you are, yeah.
Senator Lewis, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill to allow counties, cities, and towns to impose a fine on derelict housing. Localities currently don't have the power to impose a civil fine on housing that meet the state's definition of derelict. This makes it harder for localities to effectively address vacant housing units, often in Virginia's smaller cities and rural areas, that contribute to a shortage of available affordable housing. So to meet the current requirements of derelict properties, they must be vacant, boarded up in accordance with the building code, disconnected from utilities, meets these conditions for 6 months. After these conditions are met for 6 months, the localities would have to send an official notice to the property owner requesting a plan to either rectify or demolish the derelict structure. If this plan is not submitted within 3 months, the window is closed on the property owner. Under my bill, hopefully if it becomes law, counties and cities and towns would have the option to levy a fine of up to $500 per month on residential properties, not to exceed the cost of destructing the derelict housing structure. They would, that's if they fail to submit the plan to address the property conditions within the 90 days of notification. The funds from any such civil penalties would be allocated to the treasury of the locality that imposes the fine, which would allow localities to use that money for tackling homelessness and affordable housing supply, if they so desire, of course. And thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Spruill.
So what happens if they don't want to do that? You say if they so desire. So what happens if they want to? Oh, I thought I heard some jam music or something. So what happens if they decide not to use that? I concede the $500 per month, but I mean I want it to be used to good use. What you're saying that those things for the house and what have you, but you're saying that they don't have to. Then what?
Well, I tried my best in the original form to put it towards some affordable housing needs for localities, but the permissiveness was needed for it to pass so that the localities can use the money as they see fit. But open to your suggestions, Senator Spruill.
No, I'm cool. I'm cool. Thank you.
Anybody to speak in favor of 150?
Mr. Chairman, under equal treatment, I think this might be your first bill over here as well.
I tried to not put the spotlight, but yes, sir.
Good luck with that. So just, I would ask, it was originally 1,000, you lowered to 500. Was there any reason why?
Yeah, it was seen as a bit too much for some property owners that may just not have the ability to amend their properties to meet to get out of the condition of derelict. That 500 would be a good pinch, and also it's up to 500, so it's the permissiveness would allow it to go up to 500 rather than 1,000. So localities can hypothetically just put it at $1 if they really want to at the end of the day.
Well, wait, let me hang on a sec. Slow
Mr.
down.
Chair, I have a question as well.
All right, Senator Hashmi, you go first.
I'm just curious if the delegate can tell us how many dentists own these derelict buildings?
Well, if I were to guess, probably not too many, but I'd go to Senator Pillion as well to ask that question. Maybe he knows better than I do.
Let me ask you this.
I do have a serious question, but.
Well, let me ask you this. Currently, is there a provision that these derelict structures, I'm trying to remember, can be torn down and then the owner assessed for the tear down cost?
They would obviously have to work it out on a local level as far as how they do the assessment process. But I think that assessments are pretty straightforward as far as how much you need to destroy a structure. Wouldn't.
I mean, the problem I have is I've got a lot of, unfortunately, derelict buildings in the home part of my district. And these, I mean, they're owned by descendants of descendants of descendants who just can't do what needs to be done. And if we start putting $500 a month civil penalty on these folks, that's going to be pretty stiff. So I was just trying to figure out if this is how this compares to the existing framework with derelict structures, if it's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, or if we're doing something a little more. Anyway, Senator Favola.
Maybe this is for staff, but I'll address it first to the patron. Is there a definition of derelict? Because jurisdictions.
Yes, there is.
Could you direct me to the line, or because I couldn't find it.
Line 16 is what council is saying.
A residential or non-residential buildings, or whether or not construction has been completed that might endanger the public's health, safety, or welfare, and for a continuous period in excess of 6 months. Okay. So that, and further question, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Senator Favola.
So a jurisdiction, would they have to have an ordinance also describing, dealing with derelict, or could they apply this state definition?
They could apply the state definition. And they could have their own, I mean, it's
And they could
permissive.
also
At the end
have
of the
their
day,
own
this is a
ordinance.
permissive bill, so it's largely in the hands of localities to decide how they want to go about it. And to speak to Chairman Lewis's point as well, they overlap with your point as well.
Well, that's sort of what actually sparked my questioning, is whether or not local governments, and maybe Jeff, you can answer this, would have a subsequent ordinance that would be, I guess it would have to be at least as rigorous as the state definition, but how much would local governments have latitude in defining derelict?
Mr. Chair, if the locality was going to use this permissive legislation, they would have to abide by the state definition of derelict.
But if they didn't use this?
Well, I think Chairman Lewis alluded, there are other provisions out in the code outside of this section that other tolls localities may be able to use as well.
So we're not putting localities in a box in terms of this definition, but we would be in terms of the fine.
Well, again,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else? Any more questions on 150? Work by motion. Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 150. Okay. You're out of here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
And we have one more from Delegate Bell, but we don't have a Delegate Bell. Are you pinch hitting for Delegate Bell?
I would love to, if you'd allow me, Mr. Chairman.
If it'll move this apparently non-controversial bill
Yes,
out
sir.
of here? Yeah.
Exactly. That's all I was going to say. David Blunt on behalf of Albemarle County. Senate Bill 292 is
Oh,
the
I remember
identical
this one.
version.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Passed out of this committee.
Move the
12
report.
Thank you.
All right, open her up. You did a fine job for him. I believe that's
Wait
it
a
for
minute,
the.
I forgot one.
I'm sorry, what?
I forgot you got
All right, I believe that's it for the day. Do we have anything else? All right, folks, we are adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, do we have at your desk at 10:15 somewhere?
Transportation.